let's get into the main thing. One thing I did set out a couple of years ago was to make this as entertaining as I possibly could, as make it as diverse as I possibly could. And I've had matchmen on here, I've had specimen hunters, barbel anglers, float anglers, whatever. But I thought it was, appropriate tonight that we have probably the man when it comes to centerpins, who has worked with a mate of mine, which we'll talk later about, designing a centerpin. And just as it's come out, just this month as it's come out, and absolutely selling, and is that good that I've actually ordered two, it's welcome to our guest tonight, and that's Mr. Centerpin himself in Mills Tuttle down there in Redditch, Gary Mills. How you doing, mate?
Good evening, Des.
Yeah, it's really funny, really, because I know that people associate that I don't use that many centerpins, but I actually do, Gary. That I've got a few centerpins. I've used for sea fishing, I've used for salmon fishing, I've used for trout fishing. Everybody associates it. It's just a trotting reel, isn't it? But it isn't, is it?
No, it's not. Definitely not.
I mean,
yeah.
You must down at Mills Tuttle make a lot of salmon and trout reels, etc.
Yeah, definitely. People have them for prawning and worming for salmon. It's grown over the last 25 years. Definitely, it's really come on for barbel, for carp, for catfish, and even our primer. I've got somebody uses one for our primer.
Well, I noticed old Jeremy Wade used it on the fly rod, and I thought that was an incredible. Probably the sequence of the series, wasn't it? When he was on that boat with the centerpin on the fly, it was incredible.
It's things like that are just incredible, just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, let's start then. To say that you've got a fetish on centerpins is to say the least, and and rightly so called Mr. Centerpin by a lot of people behind your back, and probably in front of your face. But where did it start? Where did it actually start? And how did you get into the manufacture and the centerpin world?
When I was 14, I actually got a part-time job at JW Young's because I was into fly fishing. And when I knocked the door, and they allowed me to go and work there Saturdays and after school. But when I was 27, I basically made my first pin for myself after taking a match aerial fishing with my uncle. He was considerably older than me, and I took him fishing, and he actually gave me a match aerial to fish with, and that was my first go on Terry's Water in Harvington. And I did actually catch a small barbel that first day, and that was it.
On the float or on the ledger, or?
That was on a lead. Yeah.
And then, and obviously, you worked for Young's a few years.
Yeah, and over the years working for JW Young's, as I say, I went when I was 16 full time. Wednesday, May the 16th, at 9:10. I clocked in. That was my first full day.
Oh my God.
After 21 years I worked there. Yeah, a great family, lovely people. Loved it.
That was in Redditch?
In Redditch, yeah. Renfield Industrial Estate was about 1.5 miles from my house. I walked every day to and from work, passing Edgar Seeley's and a few other companies as well on the way home.
Yeah, and I think
Redditch was synonymous, yeah.
I don't think people realise, especially if they haven't looked into the history of things, that Redditch was the centre of the world for fishing tackle at one stage.
Well, definitely Alcock's and Millward's. Millward's made more fish hooks in the world than anybody else put together, including Alcock's and Partridges and everybody, all the names you can have. Everybody had a Millward's hook, and today, I'm sorry, it's all gone. There's not much stuff being made in England anymore, but that's progress, I suppose.
But if I remember rightly, it was because of the needle trade, wasn't it? They actually made needles in Redditch.
Yeah, Millward's needles they started late in the 17th century, and it's gone on. In Henry Millward in Redditch, they employed thousands, and yeah, it's a bent needle is a hook, and that's how it all started. Wilcox employed 1,300 people at its height. They had their own currency.
Oh
They
my
had
God.
their own shops, bakers and a butcher, that you could take your Wilcox penny as a part of your wage,
You're joking.
and you got like a staff discount. Yeah, Wilcox token.
That's
Oh,
incredible.
yeah.
That's incredible. I've got the next photos you sent there was not all glamour. I can see you're full of dirty there, and it's a bit like me involved in the fishing world. It's not just all about fishing. And there you actually love repairing and actually anything to do with centerpins.
Yeah, definitely. The actual picture of me being black, polishing aluminium is one of the world's dirtiest jobs. You get absolutely filthy. And not long ago on the Repair Shop, a TV program, there was a man outside polishing some aluminium, and I really sort of sank him heart, because I knew he never polished that stuff, because he would have been black. Then the repair and restoration, taking something from 1930s that is totally destroyed, bringing it back to life, and the customer, when his face he walked in and picked it up, he was just absolutely overjoyed. You could see the excitement on his face. That reel is now, and he's fishing with it. That's great.
Can I just ask, so that genuinely is a reel that came into you there on the left? I mean, what the hell had happened? Did it fell into a combined harvester or something? Or
No, early aluminium wasn't very good. It was like cheese. So once it's oxidising, the aluminium, old cars rust very easy, but the aluminium it oxidised so easy. Put it in a bag. 20 years later, you go to it, and it's just a pile of white dust.
right, okay, and then
Yeah.
that one on the right there, the repair after, and this guy's now using it on the river for barbel, is he?
He's actually barbel fishing with it on the way. Yeah, maybe not today, but definitely he will be.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so I mean, there genuinely is a love there. I mean, moving on there. I mean, not only have you repaired, those 3 photos just in itself are iconic. If you could tell us about, I mean, the first, the Bob James Centerpin. How did that come about? The meeting. Why did you design, etc., etc. What did you want, etc.
Well, with JW Young's Masterline, the wholesaler, they brought JW Young's out, and Bob James went to work for them for a short while. And we were at, I think it was Blenheim Palace Game Fair, probably 98, 99. 98, 99. And Bob James said, well, John Wilson's got his own reel, and I've had my name on the reel. What about me having a reel? So we had a little conversation. What sort of stuff does he like? What don't he like in the fishing reel? And I made him a prototype in black. We sent that down, and it was in black and gold, in fact. He sent it back saying he didn't like the black or gold one. Could we do one in grey? And it was basically, from the discussion I had with him, he wanted it nice and light, so he could trot more than actually use it for ledgering. Yeah, so we made the prototype, and he was over the moon. We've actually sold nearly 2,000 of those.
God
JW
blimey.
Young's have sold nearly 2,000. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's got a good name, and he's still doing the guiding. He's probably the same age as me now. He's probably 70 years of age, and he's still doing it. So they're still selling, are they? That wasn't a limited edition.
No, not a limited edition. They're still available from JW Young's. The range of that JW Young's have got, if I can mention the John Wilson Heritage Reel, again, that's sold 2,500 since 1992, 1995, I think it was John Wilson Heritage come out. And 2,500 reels, and it still sells quite well each year. Yeah, lovely way to do it.
And did you actually meet John to help with the design of it? You actually had meetups with it, and
Yeah, the first time I met John Wilson, was at Masterline themselves in Tewkesbury, where JW Young's reels are put together. I manufacture all the components and they assemble them. Either myself or Jim Young goes down to check each reel to make sure it's good enough to pass. And when I went down, while I was working for JW Young's, sat in a meeting with John, and he loved the purist reel. He was fishing with a purist, but he'd actually had a dentist make him a wire guard, because I didn't want to put a line guard on them. So John's wire guard was done by a dentist, the same as he'd done on a match aerial in the 60s, apparently. Well, the conversation went on then, so we decided to make his style of guard, but we remanufactured it. Well, I remanufactured it and made it into something that I'd be happy with. Yeah. And it was just a posh version of a purist, and made a bit lighter with the holes, but it's a lovely reel to trot with, definitely.
Yeah, it's got quite a name, hasn't it? And I mean, now, you know, with the passing of John, there's memories there of John,
Definitely.
and you know, certainly, you know, watching the films of him casting him, making it look, you know, casting that waggler across the Wensum to the far side under the trees with the accuracy. It was just, you know, it was just pure magic and magic days. In fact, I always said to John, because you know, as you know, we were good friends, and I said to John, why do you keep showing kids to have a bloody centerpin? You know, because you know he made it look so easy, and I'm pretty sure lots of people, me included, bought centerpins and thought they were that easy to use. And that's the nice thing about it. It isn't that easy to use. You've got to learn to use it. It becomes part of you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're taught, but if you actually go fishing with somebody who uses a centerpin and they show you a few simple things, it makes life so much easier. Do not try and cast a centerpin. When you first go fishing, do not try and cast a centerpin. Just one little loop of line. It makes it so much easier and so much more pleasurable. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, learn to play a fish and whatever on a centerpin first. You know, that's...
Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's a dace of 2 ounces or a chub of 5 pounds. Once you've played a fish on the centerpin, it is.
Well,
nice.
I've often said that wouldn't it be a joy if you could have a fixed spool to do everything with, and then all of a sudden, as soon as the float goes under, you strike and it becomes a centerpin. And I suppose that was the idea of the next reel that you were involved in heavily, the Ray Walton, which you know takes away that casting.
Again, we was at the Go Fishing show, probably 98, 99, at the NEC, on a stand at JW Young's, and this little fella come walking up, and I won't say what we said when he come walking up, and I looked at Jim Young and he looked at me. This fella just come walking on the stand and he went, "Hello," and we looked at each other thinking, "Who's this?" And he just went, "I'm Ray Walton." And as soon as he said Ray Walton, I went, "Oh, blimey, didn't expect to see him there." And the conversation went straight on at that point. I love fishing with the pins, but casting out a bit further, I've got one of these older reels. Could we do something and make a reel that can do that? And that was the exact conversation. He was then contracted with Bruce and Walker, making exograph rods, putting his name to exograph rods. And we contacted Brian Potter from Bruce and Walker, and the discussions went on. A few prototypes went forwards and backwards, including a red one, which was really a bit garish. But the Mark 1, again, Bruce and Walker, I think they sold, looking at my thing, they sold about 580 in their time, the Mark 1s. And that's exactly it. And of course, he went and caught a British record with it in 1999. Here's number 1, which the picture behind me, that's the first print off on it, which Ray sent me, signed with pencil signatures from everybody, which is great. But yeah, just the conversation of I want it to cast forward, but of course it wasn't new. That had been done a long time ago. Slightly smaller than what he anticipated. We made it 3 3/4 inch. He wanted it 4 inch to start with, but when he received the 3 3/4 inch, he was over the moon with it.
Why did you make it that smaller? Was there any particular reason for that?
Yeah, as we made it slightly bigger, when we were casting, or when I was casting in the car park, I was I was tending to have all sorts of trouble with the loops actually coming off quicker, too quick. They were actually looping off the spool too quick. So the shape of the spool and the diameter was really important, and we brought it down a little bit at a time until we got to where we was happy with the casting motion.
Yeah, and certainly. Well, I we'll go on to later. I nearly ordered two of them myself, but what I ordered with you was actually the new things now, and that's what I think we should perhaps move on to. Is that your involvement with the Barbel Society, your involvement with Lawrence Breakspear, and the actual development of the Barbel Buster, which is now available, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I've known Lawrence for quite a while. He's been a customer of mine. He's been and bought match aerials. He's been and bought different reels and line guards, and I've serviced reels for him. And I nearly went fishing with him once. And I got to the river and he phoned me up and said he couldn't make it, but that's another story. Yeah, he came about 2 years ago and said, right, I've got to have a reel that's going to do exactly what I want. There's lots of centerpins on the market, but there's nothing exactly what I want. So the lightness of it with the aluminium, and then being very durable. So this is the first reel I've ever made with semi-hard anodizing. So the anodizing is a lot deeper and a lot harder. It's that hard and that deep. I couldn't actually diamond engrave it. We've had to have these laser etched, which is a bit of a bugbear for me because I like to do everything, but I couldn't actually laser etch them, so I had to send them out to be done. So everything that Lawrence had been talking about for the 2 years, I rang him up in early this year, probably January, February, early this year, and said, the Barbel Society, it's their anniversary year, 25 years. What about doing something now? In it, in striking while the islands are. It came, we sat down, we had loads of discussions and whys and why not. And we've come up with something that's, some of the features, yeah, brilliant, never been done. Putting just the simple thing about putting a B in the barrel, B for Barbel, just think like that. It's just adding an extra little bit of speciality. There's going to be 100 of them made. They won't be repeated. So I hope people buy them to fish with. If some people buy them and put them on the shelves to look at, that's up to them. I've already had people sending me photographs of captures of chub being caught, with dace being caught, not just barbel. But it's great that people are they've taken them really well and they're going out and fishing with them.
So what are the extra bit? I've spoke to Lawrence and he's told me. Can we go through some of the special little bits and dabs? There's even a little bit of rubber for the line, isn't there? So
yeah, but that was first done on the Mark 1 rolling pin, and that was one of, I would say, Ray's ideas. A line keep, somewhere to put the line afterwards. But nobody ever used it on the rolling pin. Nobody ever knew it was there, because it was a black handle and a black piece of rubber. So when me and Lawrence was discussing, and we said, well, if we make a feature of a white handle with the black rubber, people are saying, well, what's that for? And now that little line keep, when you finish at the end of the day and you've tackled down, if you tackle down, you can just put them on filament or put your blade, just swipe it through, and then you haven't got to go searching for your line the next time you're using it. And lines will come off centerpins. When you put them in your bag, they unwrap themselves. The solid back plate on the rear flange of the spool, you've got a solid back plate, a solid rear flange with the ventilated front. So the back plate, you're not going to get muck going in the back plate, and the rear flange, you're not going to get any maggot dust, any particle baits going into the side of the reel, because it's a solid back plate. So that was a big thing.
And you've got the adjuster on the clutch as well, haven't you?
The adjustable drag, again, that's 15 foot of flood water on the Severn a few years ago when they put the barriers up. I went fishing with somebody I've always spoke to you previously that I know, and he got me fishing there. And it was to hold back in the flood. So you can put a 4-ounce weight the other side of the bank, and the river and the power of the river will actually pull the line off the reel on a standard centerpin. But on this one, you've got some micro adjustment on the back on the little brass wheel. You turn it round, and it virtually makes it anti-reverse. You know, and it's one of those things. If the flow of the river cannot pull the reel, you've got more chance. If it's actually pulling a big loop of line in, you know, you're not going to be able to fish like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know when you buy a centerpin, and lots of people will buy a centerpin, and then all of a sudden they put it onto their barbel rod. A lot of modern day barbel rods have got one ring on the bottom, right up towards the top, and a great big ring. We need special ringing, ideally.
The closest to the reel, the better. Yes, but if you're barbel fishing, for me, I'm going to be fishing no more than 4 rods out on most of my swims. So having a ring that far up isn't too much of a problem, because pulling 2 fingers off the first ring, as long as you can reach that first ring and cast in with that, you will get 4 rod lengths off with just 2 rings. So
Yeah.
for me, that's never been an issue. But the closer you can get the rings to the reel, yeah, it will be an advantage.
Do you tend to use as far as I know, the two things, the Nottingham style, which is the pulling down of the pulling down of the line, or the Wallace cast? I mean, my mate Ray Cutler, you know, he uses the Wallace cast, you know, and he makes a joke of it, you know, pulling it off and just whacking it out, and the drum revolving. You think, oh my life, you know.
If you can watch somebody Wallace cast and stand there and break it down, it is pure poetry. Personally, I can Wallace cast, but I'm not practiced enough because I don't go on big enough rivers generally for that. So I am 2 fingers and Nottingham style, or a side cast where I actually loop my finger level with the side of the reel, and I can get 7 or 8 rod lengths. You know, I fish the Trent, the old Trent, and the most I'm casting up there is 5 or 6 rod lengths. So that is on the side of the finger.
So you're actually, by the finger, you're actually making it almost a thick spool. It's coming directly off the coming onto your finger and then going out. So you're cheating a bit. You're actually coming off the side the reel.
Yeah, but that's only when I'm struggling to get to where I want to be.
Yeah,
generally I can 2 or 3 fingers.
I remember a chap in Angling Times, and I actually used it. He actually put on a piece of cork a little hook, and he hooked the line and cast it out, and the line went round the hook and out, and he could cast 60 yards with a lead.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a zinger. I've got a zinger now on my, one of my fishing jackets. So when I'm going on the bigger rivers, I've got this zinger with a curtain hook, so I can actually pull it off there and hook it round and actually do it instead of my finger. I've actually got a curtain hook now into a piece of cork on a zinger.
That's what this was.
And it definitely, if you want to get that extra distance, definitely that does work, without a doubt. I've never actually perfected anything I would like to manufacture, because I've played with all sorts of bearings on rollers for something to do that, which would really make it much, much easier for people to cast the centerpin. Without a doubt, the downfall of a centerpin is casting it. That is the big thing.
Would it be a great problem to produce a reel fitting that turned?
Well, you've got the Ray Walton and JW Youngs.
But I mean a reel fitting that you could fit on a reel fitting that turned, so any centerpin could go onto it and turn.
Yeah, Adapter Cast done it in the 50s. There are some out there where people I think it comes in 3 sizes, and it's called an Adapter Cast. And we actually looked at remaking them in the early 90s, and we decided at Young's it wasn't something we wanted to do. It was a brass pressing that was assembled together. And if people want to look at them, you can pick them up off the internet for about 12 quid, 15 quid. And it's called an adapter cast. There's not a lot of them out there anymore. I do have to.
But I suppose at the end of the day, it's getting away from the skill of what centerpins are about, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I use my little curtain hook probably once a year, and that's only when they put me into a swim. I go on a cane and pin day with the nautical piscatorials, and they put me on a swim, you know, and so you can't really choose your swim. Where for me, when I go anywhere, the biggest part of me, I go looking for my swim first, and I always look for the swim that's going to be the most comfortable for me, not the most comfortable for that angler who's going to be casting 70 yards, who's going to be catching barbel because I know they're going to be there. I'm not going fishing. I'm not saying I'm a traditionalist, because I'm not. I want to catch fish, but it's not the be-all and end-all for me.
Well, you want to catch it in your terms. And I know Lawrence is, you know, I talk to Lawrence probably most days. Probably talk to Lawrence more than talk to my wife. But when I talk to Lawrence, I think the centerpin thing is, it doesn't need to be easy, because at the end of the day, fishing isn't supposed. To quote Lawrence, fishing was never meant to be that easy. And you know, centerpins. There's a couple of lads coming up here now. On the program, listening to it, that said, you know, to learn the skills is so rewarding. It's unbelievable. So
yeah, definitely. And as I said before, once you've hit a fish and you're actually playing a fish on a centerpin, that feeling, it's just one of them things which you can't describe. You have to have done it. A man came in yesterday with 3 big pit bait reels and asked me if I could oil and grease them and just service them. It's not something I generally do, but because he's local, he only lives down the road, I said, yeah, leave them with me, I'll get it sorted. We started talking about the centerpin fishing, and I said, and at the end of an hour's conversation with him, I gave him one of my centerpins and said, go and have a play with that. Just on the little local river, just go and have a play. Because once people have done it, what's happened, cut me short if I'm going on too long about this, but what happened, we've gone from the Abu 506s and 501s and the Mitchell 300s to the front drag big cart reels and the rear drag reels and even reels with bite alarms in. And I believe people tended to lose a little bit. Now, going back to the centerpin thing, it is just giving something back. Not too traditional. I'm not a traditionalist in any way. I do use a cane rod occasionally, but I use carbon rods for my barbel angling. I use carbon rods, 14 foot and 15 foot for my float fishing. I'm not a traditionalist, even though I use centerpins.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having salmon of 38 and 40 pound in Canada, some Pacific salmon, and they were on centerpins, and they hadn't got. I wish they'd got your sort of adjustable clutch on it, because they call them knuckle busters. They were actually a plastic Daiwa reel, and you used to have to use them the other way round, so you got to hold the rod in your left hand, and the fish would thunder away, and you got to try and stop the thing. But I tell you something now, it was magical when you got used to it and put your hand underneath. It was absolutely magical.
The Barbel Buster, one feature I haven't mentioned is we've actually set the handles further in than the general centerpin. The handles are set in further off the rim.
Oh, to stop it needing a knuckle buster.
Yeah, when you get a barbel do that, yeah, it does catch you. So that's one of the features Lowell wanted.
Oh, you set them into the face a bit more, have you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we set it in. Yeah. So there's a few little bits like that we've done on that reel. And yeah, sorry for going back to it, but it really, really has sold extremely well, and we're great. A donation goes to the Barbel Society from each reel, so, and that's going to all good causes, to the Conservation Trust and everything else what the Barbel Society's, so I'm really pleased to be a part of it. Really pleased to be a
Yeah,
part of it.
if people want to buy one of these new pins, all they've got to do is look on your website, the Mill Tattle website.
Yeah, it's best to ring me up because at this moment in time, out of the 100, I've got about 30 left. I haven't made the second batch yet, and I've already got orders for over 20 of them.
So what number have they got to ring, mate? What number is it to ring?
Mill Tackle 01527 853438. That's on my website. If they just go to the website, it's all on there. And without a doubt, it's best to ring me. I've had a few emails and I say to people, ring me, because I like to talk people through the reel as well. Because if I don't think it's right for somebody, I will tell them. I will say, look, if you've never used a centerpin before, actually see if you can borrow one. May I mention a tackle shop?
You can mention anything you want, Gary.
Okay.
We're on a centerpin night, and you're the god, so you can say anything.
I did tackling Briley Hill, Glenn. He actually phoned me up and said, I want to talk about one of these. And I said to him, look, come to the factory, have a play with one, make sure it is something you... He came down, he took 2 away with him. He went back to the tackle shop. He had a couple of days using it. He's ordered another 2 for himself personally and the fellow who works in the shop. And that's by coming, getting one, then getting on the bank and having a play with it and going, oh yeah, we've missed this.
Yeah, well, you can always mention Glenn, because Glenn's my wife's first cousin, so he's always worth it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's a lovely lad, proper black country lad. Okay, right at the end here, I asked you a question, right? And at the start of this week, and you gave me the most delightful answer. The most delightful answer. I'm going to ask you that question now. And I'm going to say to you, with all the modern reels, with all the capacity they've got, that takes all the best line, the fastest retrieve, you can cast 150 yards, you can cast 1,000,000 miles and everything. It does everything better than a centerpin. Why the hell would people want to use a centerpin?
My first response to that, and it is the same as is what you drive. Now, you go to work on a Monday and you go in your Ford Focus and you're doing this and then, but on a Sunday, if you've got a Morgan in the garage, you're going to get it out and you're going to drive it to Stratford and put a smile on your face, drive it round, get across. 11 years ago, I was fortunate to buy an old lady's Triumph 1300 TC. I don't know. That's
the one in the photograph, yeah.
Well, that car came to me. It hadn't been used since 1978. Painstakingly put it back on the road. A little bit of help with my brother doing it, and we've got that on the road. That car, you sit in it, and it just puts that great big smile on your face. You hold the steering wheel, it takes you back. You drive down the road, you put the window wipers on, and the window wipers take 3.5 minutes to make one revolution. And it just makes you smile. And using a centerpin is the same sort of feeling. It is very difficult to describe it, and the only way I can describe it is like that. I've never been that fortunate to own a Morgan, and I really one day that would be fantastic, because people have said, oh, coming to your factory is like going to the Morgan factory, which is a great honour in my eyes. So, actually getting in a car, driving down the road and getting people looking and going, blooming hell, that's a nice car. A few years ago, I was fishing the River Arrow in Redditch, stood in sort of 2 foot, 3 foot of water and under a road bridge. And an old gentleman looked over the bridge and he went, that's a lovely old rod and reel you got there. And yeah, the rod was 60 or 70 years old, but the reel was only made a couple of hours earlier. And that's the sort of feeling, I love and I get. And I
think that goes through to the last photograph you supplied me with your grandson and you landing a chub out of a small rip. Might even actually be the Stoward or the Arrow or something like that, a tribute to the Avon. And I think that's a beautiful photograph a little modern kid with his hat turned round the right way, with the other way, and then you sort of landing that fish, and he's using a centerpin. That's lovely.
Yeah. The first time I took him, I said, he kept saying, "Can I come fishing, Grandad? Can I come fishing?" I said, "On your 5th birthday, after your 5th birthday, I will take you." I took him, not with that rod and reel, with a different rod and reel, and I set him up and I got him going. And we were catching little chub and dace. Keeping kids catching is the first thing for me, but with a pin and a cane rod. And he really struggled, and he really didn't enjoy himself. On the way home, it clicked in my mind what was wrong with him, and just then, it was the fact that it wasn't a centerpin and it wasn't an old clunky cane rod. I'd actually set him up right-handed, and he's left-handed.
Oh, right.
So I said to him, well, the next time I take you, what I would do, I will get your rod and your reel, and it will all be set up left-handed for you. And so the second time I took him, that was it. So now he fishes with a pin, and I do have to help him. He's not quite 10, he's 10 this Sunday. I have to help him out, but I'm not trying to force a centerpin on him, but I'm teaching him centerpin fishing, and he's all right. He's quite good at it, and he loves it. And for me, that's all the tea in China.
Well, I was talking to Lol again this week. Obviously, the conversations have all been revolved around the centerpin this week because of this program. And as Lol said, I know I can cast farther with a fixed spool or a multiplier. I know that I could probably catch more fish if I was fishing the likes of the Trent with over the other side at 60 yards away. I know, but I want to use my centerpin. And I think that's just a delightful attitude that seems to be common amongst centerpin anglers, that, God, they haven't got caught up in the race of, I've got to have a reel that can, fish anywhere and cast anywhere or whatever. Well, I'm going to fish on my terms and enjoy it my way. And it's, that's what's come across.
Definitely. Somebody like yourself who are making a living from fishing. I'm making a living from actually making reels. I'm not actually making a living on the bank.
Yeah.
So when I go fishing, I want it to be the most pleasurable. Sometimes I'll totally go on my own. I can pack up, go down the river and spend 4 or 5 hours without talking to anybody, and I don't want to talk to anybody. But for me, that's fishing. When I've had a crappy day, I can go on the bank on my own, sit there and be in my own world. And sometimes I'll ring 3 or 4 blokes up to try and get them to come fishing with me, to say, I'm going fishing tomorrow, do you want to come? Simply because then it's enjoyable, I want to chat, and I've got a fella who helps me out occasionally, and we go fishing together. And sometimes we just sit there and feed fish. We don't actually fish, like I'm sure most anglers, or some anglers, they will actually go there, spot feeding chub, and just feed the fish. And I've got home, and the wife will say, "Oh, how did you get on?" "Oh, I never fished." "You've been 4.5 hours, where you been?" And I'll say, "Well, I just sat and fed the fish." Yeah. And that's what,
I think in most of us, even as a professional angler, there's a ruthless side of me, and then there's a pure joy side of me. And there's places where I will go that I want to catch a big fish, and I will use the reel, the rod, the gear that I've got to use. But I'm buying these 2 centerpins because I know the 2 people who designed them. I want to use them, and I've said, we'd already booked the trip with me and Lawrence, that I said, perhaps you could come as well, even better, that the first fish I catch on that reel that Lawrence has helped you design, I want to be Lawrence to be there. Relevant to the size, so away from the ruthless side, that's why I'm having it. I think that's what centerpin anglers are more of.
Yeah, I'm at the fact that when I go fishing, I don't just want to catch fish. Yes, I want to feel something pull, and I want the excitement of all this lot. But again, sorry for repeating myself, I'm not a traditionalist, and I don't think of myself as a traditionalist. But it's not the be-all and end-all. But how lovely for you to go fishing and want that memory 10 years, 20, 30 years time when you and Lawrence are 99 sat in a old people's home, sat there together talking about all your fishing days, people, you know, whether they would understand it or not, but that's yours. That's your special attachment for you, two of you. And for me, that's what it gives you.
A chap's just sent in fact, a chap, I just noticed is Steve Pope. Steve Pope, the chairman of the Barbel Society. We mustn't forget dear old Fred Crouch. He definitely helped popularise the pin for the barbel. He used it the wrong way around, a left-handed, although he was right-handed. Fred Crouch was a great,
without a doubt. And I took something from Fred. As you go through life, you cherry pick bits of information off people. And one thing he said to me, like he put in a book, I believe he wrote it in a book, but he turned around to me one day and he said, when you're feeding the birds in your garden, all the little birds will come first. And as you keep feeding them, the birds will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the bigger fish will come, as in you know, for that to actually go into fishing from the birds in your garden. And that has been the biggest thing from Fred that has always stuck in my mind. When I go fishing, I've got that. And if I may indulge, one thing I've got of yours and Lawrence's from about mid-70s is a cassette player from the team.
Yeah.
And one thing you said, or Lawrence said, and this is going back 30 years, so it's, you know, my memory, is if you're going to look at a river for the first time, make sure you go when there's no water in it. Go at low water so you can see the undercuts. So, yeah, we're all sponges. We all take little bits and bobs from them. And when Fred Crouch took components and the stuff from Shakespeare's, which owned Young's at that particular time, and he took the things away and started producing the match aerial. He couldn't call it the Orcox match aerial, but he called it the match aerial. That's still a big seller. They're still being made and sold, and lots of people. And without a doubt, it's a great thing that he carried it on. When Young's finished in 1969 making the match aerial, Fred sort of filled the void for people for a good 10 or 12 years until Young's made another reel. And Fred definitely filled the void, and people, you know, he got a lot of people into centerpin fishing.
Yeah, I think the delightful thing about Fred was he wanted to catch barbel. In fact, there's a young guy around now at the moment that a chap called Ian Potts, and it's got much the same attitude. Although he catches lots of big barbel, you know, he's just interested in catching barbel. You know, if it's a 2-pounder, if it's he's caught him up to 17 pound, but you know, every time he catches a barbel, either I get a photo or I get a text or whatever. You know, he just like Fred. He just likes catching barbel, and that was the what's name of Fred, wasn't he? He just loved catching barbel. You know, and that's right. Can I just? A few people said the number was rather fast, which I mean, let's get it right. You know, the people can actually come back and look at this. But I'd like to end the note that, you know, those reels are running out. If the number they've got to, you know, for the Barbel Buster, the number they've got to ring is what? What was that number again?
01527 853438.
Yeah, and all I can say is, you know, they're going to have a delightful piece of tattle, absolutely designed by two experts. And they're going to use it and have a great deal of fun. Mate, it's been absolutely magic to talk to you tonight. It really has, and I'm sure the Centerpin people will be over the moon that I've had you on here. And it's been a great pleasure. It's been a great pleasure working with you all week to get the photos, etc., etc. And next week, certainly I'll get over and pick my 2 reels up. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I don't know if I'm going to put one away so it's absolutely mint, or I might actually just fish with the 2, because I want to fish with them really.
They are tools. They are tools, and they should be used.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree. I'm certainly not buying them to make a few bob in 2 years, because I'm sure they will go up in price. That's a fact. But no, I really do fancy. One of the things that the virus has done, or not, you know, the lockdowns, we've all looked at one another and sort of said, what is life about? You know, as you sat in the house, and it's brought it home. And one thing it's brought home to me is looking after your friends, looking after your family, and sod what anybody else wants you to do or what you're supposed to do in fishing. You know, do what you want to do and what I want to do, and it might sacrifice a few fish this year, but does it really give a damn? You know, or does it really matter? I'm going to use a centerpin and go out with Lol and catch a few fish on the centerpin.
Lovely.
So,
and yeah, it's lovely to hear people like you. I'm not saying a few shows, you know, you weren't too keen on people using centerpins, and you said a little bit about centerpins. I know you've used them, and I think you should just get on and use it.
You know,
use them, please.
To be honest, mate, I've always been a little controversial, and I've been to shows, and I've used centerpins in the past, and as I've said, I use centerpins a lot. You know, for other types of fishing. You know, not just for.
Yeah.
You know, I use them for whether I was abroad salmon fishing, whether I'm trout fishing. You know, it's a centerpin for trout fishing all the time. So you know, it was always a joke. And I remember being at a meeting at Coventry, and there was a few centerpin guys there, and the one chap said, "What do you think of the centerpin?" And I said, "You know, they've made probably the best door stopper ever." And I think this guy sort of would have liked to have put the centerpin where the sun don't shine, but it was only a joke. You know, I got the greatest.
I think I was there.
Was you
I
there?
was at that meeting, yes.
Oh, that must have been marvellous for you to hear me say that. But anyway,
yeah, good fun.
It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. You be safe, look after yourself, and I'll catch you next time round, mate. I'll see you next week, and I can't wait to get to your place, because everybody that says I'll be going there for 10 minutes, but I shall end up being there 2 hours.
Yeah, people do.
Okay. I look forward to it, mate.
Cheers, Des.
You watch how you go, son.
Thank you.
All the best.